Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Melanie Campbell, President and CEO, National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. And it's my pleasure to come to you this morning with our breaking news at the Black Women's Roundtable. We are releasing our 9th annual Black Women's Roundtable poll, Power to Sister Vote poll, in partnership with Essence Magazine. And we commissioned the poll that was conducted by Terrence Woodbury of HIT Strategies. We will also be joined by Dr. Avis Jones DeWeaver, a researcher extraordinaire who leads Insight Unlimited, LLC. She's also a senior research advisor for the National Coalition and Black Women's Roundtable and a board member of our organization. So without further ado, drum roll, please. We are going to release the data on what are Black women thinking. What do we want for our vote in 2024? What are the concerns that we have? What are we thinking about when it comes to this presidential election cycle? And so we could not be more thrilled to have with us to walk through the data. And following Terrence Woodbury, you will hear from Dr. Avis Jones DeWeaver, who will give a response and also add in some insight that she has about the poll. So we have two powerful brother and sister who will dissect this poll this morning. So Terrence, we turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Melanie and Dr. Avis Jones DeWeaver for your partnership and leadership here. We are thrilled about, I love Day to Day. Can you all hear me? Thumbs up. Okay. We are thrilled about releasing some new data that is really beginning to show how Black women are showing up politically and how they will continue to throughout the cycle. I will stand by while we get the slides up and start to talk you through some of what we are finding. All right, I'm back. Okay, hello, folks. Really excited to share with you some of what we're finding here. My camera looks weird. Okay, there we go. I'm back. So let's go to the next slide, jump right into the data, and see how Black women's attitudes have been evolving since the last election and what we can and how they are expressing their attitudes during this cycle. Next slide, please. Actually, is it okay if I share? Can I share? Is it okay if I share my screen? And never mind, I don't have sharing privileges. Let's go to the next. This is a poll of 800 Black women registered voters. We are going to be referencing some of the previous data collected by Brilliant Corners in 2022. Anytime we reference previous data, I will point to that. I think I need to share my slides, my screen, please, folks. Can I have share privileges, please?
Terrence, can you not see what we see? Can you see what we see?
I can see it. Okay. Economic anxieties are at the top of mind for Black women. A lot of the pain that they're expressing is not just about the economy, it's about cost and affordability. There is a clear generational gap that we are experiencing. Black women are not a monolith. There are very clear differences within this voting bloc, and some of those differences are most profound between the younger Black women and older Black women. We see that across every metric. That while older Black women are performing exactly how we would expect them to. Younger Black women are expressing a different level of anxiety, of frustration, and continuing to pursue options. Number three, while half of Black women are currently supporting the president, about 20% remain undecided, while 13% say that they are voting for Donald Trump and 10% say they are voting third party, with another 6% saying that they would not vote. When we ask about the approval of the president, 63% of Black women say that they approve of the job that the president is doing, 21% strongly approve, 42% somewhat approve. But here you begin to see the stark generational differences. This Black women, the silent generation and boomers, Black women over the age of 60, much more supportive of the president, twice as likely to say that they are strongly approve of his job performance than every other generation. That includes Gen X Black women, millennial Black women, and Gen Z Black women. And we see the same generational divide, that this isn't, a divide amongst each generation. It is a divide of older Black women compared to younger Black women, and we see that at every metric. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And when we begin to look into that dissatisfaction, we see from 2022, when 45% of Black women said that they were satisfied with the direction of the country, that has reduced by 10%. Now only 35% of Black women say that they are satisfied with the direction of the country. But when we go underneath there and ask open-endedly, what are they satisfied and dissatisfied about? We see that the dissatisfaction is overwhelmingly about the economy and, most important, about cost, inflation, high cost, prices. And that as they are addressing this pain around cost, that is the cost of education, cost of healthcare, cost of prescriptions, cost of gas, cost of groceries, very specifically, folks, a part of where we are having the disconnect in the conversation when we see economic indicators like job creation and unemployment rates, why those economic indicators are not connecting to what Black women are expressing is because what they are expressing is anxiety about cost. Next slide, please. We do see some movement here when we ask about how often they experience racism. Since 2022, we have seen a reduction in Black women's personal experience with racism. That same reduction is not expressed when we ask them about their experiences with sexism. 66% of Black women in 2022 said they experience, 31% of Black women in 2022 said they experienced sexism. 34% of Black women today say they experience sexism. And so we do see this, experiences of racism reducing while experiences of sexism have not. Next slide, please. Diving into the issues that are most important to Black women. The first thing we see when we ask, how important are all of these things on a scale of 0 to 10? The first thing you see on this graph is that Black women are rating every issue as very, very important. There's anxiety around the cost of living. There's anxiety around affordable housing, anxiety around protecting Black history. These are extremely, extremely high numbers. And again, these are only people that rate these things in 8 through 10, which is extremely, extremely high. And almost 80% of Black women are rating all of these issues between the 8 and the 10. On the next slide, you see that when we do ask a forced choice and go from, rating how important all of these issues are to asking the question specifically about the 2024 election, what should this election be about? As when we ask the forced choice here, we do see a couple of issues rise to the top, namely and most importantly, inflation and bringing costs down. Second, improving the economy and increasing wages. And third is reducing violence and guns and expanding guns, reducing gun violence and expanding gun safety laws. Other important issues here include protecting the social safety net like Medicaid and Medicare. And while other issues including voting rights and abortion and democracy seem to fall further down the issue priorities here, it is notable that when we ask on a scale of 0 to 10 how important are these issues, almost 80% of Black women say that they're extremely important. But when we ask them what this election should be about, we do see that the cost and economic issues clearly rise to the top. Next slide, please. We also asked, are you more or less likely to support a candidate that is running for office who is supportive of racial justice? Overwhelmingly, 86% of Black women say that they are more likely to support a candidate that supports racial justice. 68% are more likely to support a candidate that will protect abortion rights. An overwhelming majority are more likely to support a candidate that will secure our border. Abortion remains an extremely mobilizing issue. We have seen attitudes about abortion evolve in the Black community post-Dobbs, where a lot of people's personal beliefs, while they're personally object to or oppose abortion, they also understand who will be affected the most when the government starts controlling women's bodies, and that will be Black women. And so we asked this question a different way. To the right here, we first asked, which of these statements do you agree with the most? I personally support the right to an abortion and believe it should be legal and available to everyone. 42% of Black women agree with that. But when we also asked, I am personally against abortion, but I do not believe the government should interfere. 47% agree with that, and you see only 12% of Black women oppose abortion. Next slide, please. We also ask who is better on the following issues. Democrats, Republicans, both are neither. And we see that Black women give Democrats an overwhelming advantage, especially on issues like fighting for women, supporting DEI programs, where Democrats have a 50-point advantage over Republicans. But also issues like supports workers' rights and labor unions, protects voting rights, and fights for issues that are important to you. Overwhelmingly, Black women are giving Democrats an advantage on all of these issues. But in the next slides, we'll see how that is impacting who they will vote for. Black women are also expressing significant concern around the conflict in Israel, with 79% of Black women saying that they are concerned about the conflict. 81% of younger Black women saying they're concerned about this conflict, representing the generational divide that we are seeing in every other voting bloc. Next slide, please. All right, diving into this upcoming election. Look, we have seen some erosion here in Black women's approval of the president. In 2022, 58% rated him between a 75 and 100. On a scale of 0 to 100, overwhelming 58, a majority of Black women rated him between a 75 and 100. We have seen about a 20-point decline since 2022, and that is being reflected in their vote choice. We've also seen a very marginal and minor improvement in their favorability of Donald Trump. 7% of Black women rated him between a 75 and 100 in 2022, and now 9% of Black women. Again, this is marginal, but it is notable that some Black women are beginning to give him a second look and rate the former president a bit higher. How is that affecting their vote choice? On the next slide, Black women remain extremely likely to vote. Please rate your level of motivation for voting in this year's election. 64% of Black women say that they are motivated. That is extremely high this early in the cycle. That's higher than we're seeing across any other group. And 56% of Black women say that they are definitely going to vote. in the upcoming election. Again, this early, this far out from the general election, these numbers are very high. And while we don't have the comparative of other races here, HIT is keeping a finger on those metrics as well. And Black women are representing their agency and their motivation to participate in this election. Notably, though, before we go to the next slide, notably, you will see some of the generational gap here. When you look at the bottom, you look at Black women under the age of 50, and only 59% say that they are motivated, compared to 71% of Black women over the age of 50. And we see that same precipitous decline on the other side when you look at younger Black women, who are about 14 points less likely to say that they are going to vote in this election. Next slide, please. Black women do remain hopeful about the upcoming election. When we ask which of the following emotions best describes how you are feeling when it comes to the upcoming election, 43% say they feel hopeful, 40% say they feel anxious. That's pretty consistent across voting blocks. This kind of equal distribution of both hope, but also anxiety. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Only a couple more slides here so we can kick this over to questions and then open it up to conversation. When we start looking at the horse race, if the election were today, who would you vote for? 55% of Black women said they would vote for Joe Biden, clear majority. 15% said they would vote for Donald Trump. Not a significant increase from previous. I think in 2020, I think 9% of Black women voted for Donald Trump. So we are seeing some improvement here. But most important, we also see 13% of Black women say that they're going to vote for third party. 11% remain undecided. And again, we continue to see the generational divide. When you just look at the two bars under there, 71% of Black women over the age of 50 say that they are voting for Joe Biden, while only 43% of Black women under the age of 50. Again, this represents both a generational divide that we are seeing uniquely in the amongst Black women. The same is true on the next slide. When you look at who they will vote for Congress, we see very similar trends. Majority say they will vote for Democrats. With the significant generational divide between Black women under the age of 50, only 50% of them say they will vote for Democrats, compared to Black women over the age of 50, where 71% say that they will vote for Democrats. And notably, Black moms, a majority of Black moms, 51% say that they will vote for Joe Biden, but 17% say they will vote third party. I want to make one more point about these horse race slides before we kick this over to conversation. This is not where I expect this voting block to land on election day. 12% remain undecided. Those folks are going to make a choice. What we don't know yet is if the 12% that remains undecided. Can you go back to the previous slide real quick? This makes more sense when we're talking about a candidate. What we don't know is this 11% that remains undecided, are they undecided because they are expressing discontent or frustration with the current administration, or are they undecided because they don't want to express that they are voting for Donald Trump, which we have seen amongst Black men quite often, that they underrepresent their support for Trump because of social desirability of not being a Black Trump supporter. And so we don't know that yet. Some of this we're going to continue to explore in research and in focus groups, and of course Dr. DeWeaver and Melanie will help us add some context to this. I think that is all the slides.
Thank you, Terrence. And there's more that we'll share along the way. But we wanted to get started with this release. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Avis Jones DeWeaver, who will give her analysis of the data, augmenting what our bright and wonderful Terrence Woodbury has shared with us, and we appreciate working with you, Terrence, on this and being thoughtful about what we were sharing today, and let the people decide. at the end of the day. Um,
Thank you,
and
Melanie, for
polls
your
are a snapshot in time, and there's a lot of runway leading into 2024 general election. We know who the presumptive nominees are when it comes to the presidential election, but I want to remind folks that it's also congressional races happening. There are also local races happening. So we have to make sure that we pay attention to that. And I think it was important when it came to having some idea of how folks think about the congressional races. So Dr. Avis, turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Mel. So if, hold on just a second, please. Okay, so for me, hold on just a second, let's finish that auto. Okay, perfect. We got the audio issue worked out. Okay, so I think the big picture takeaway here for me, the big story here, as many of you know who have been with us over the years, this is our 9th annual poll. So we've done this for almost a decade. And I think what's very important to realize here is that we're seeing something with this data that we've never seen before. Most striking to me is the fact that I would now categorize Black women as in the persuadable category. Typically, we understand that the Black woman's vote has been the anchor for those that are looking to support the Democratic Party or the Democratic candidate. That's just the facts. It's not an analysis, it's just the facts. Overwhelming majorities of Black women in the past have voted for the Democratic candidate. We're seeing a degree of variance here that we have never seen before. And I think to really dig down into that deeply, I would love to be able to go back to a slide that we didn't spend as much time on, but I think is absolutely critical for you to get what I'm talking about, because a lot of that variance is across generational divides. If we could go back to slide 7, please. Is this slide 7? Perfect. All right, so with this slide, I want you to pay attention to two colors, okay? That sort of magenta color where we have Joe Biden. Look at the totals, okay? Total support here, 51%, which is honestly historically low for a Democratic candidate. And then if you look at the different generations, Gen Z, 40%, Gen X, 43%, millennials, 42%. They are all clustered very, very close together. Previously, we've always seen that boomers have been overwhelmingly in favor of Democratic candidates. We've typically seen Gen X's over a bit more than this, right? And we've seen a big divide primarily between millennials and younger and Gen X's and older. This to me indicates a very, very different reality that political parties, both parties, need to contend for, because they need to understand there is a possibility of persuasion here. I think also important to look at here is that purple bar there, independent third-party candidates. Okay, so when we look at that, we're seeing overall 10% of the Black women in this poll said that, and we can go back if we can enlarge that screen.
Oh, we were putting it on you.
Okay. Yeah, if we could share that, because I'm still kind of breaking that down.
Okay.
Thank you. So 10% of Black women candidates, as you can see overall, third party, they're considering voting third party, which is significant enough. I mean, when you think about the fact that this is not going to be a runaway election, I don't care how you slice it, this is going to be a close election, probably closer than many even think at this moment. What really needs to happen is that each party needs to get their base out strong. And Black women are a key part of the Democratic base. If they are in peril of losing 10% to a third party candidate, that could mean the difference in key states. That could mean all the difference in terms of electoral college. But when you look at that more deeply, once again, in terms of generational breakouts, look at millennials, look at Gen Zs, they are especially likely to consider a third party candidate. Yes, there are significant people that are undecided right now. As we get closer to the election, they will likely make decision. I wouldn't be surprised if the bulk of them go back home, okay? But I will tell you this, that third-party candidacy right there, and the fact that so many, 20%, basically 1 in 5 right now, are saying that they're undecided. Putting that together with the third-party candidate, that's 30%, almost a third of all Black women who responded to the survey said that they're either undecided or they're leaning in the direction of an independent candidate or a third-party candidate, which to me suggests for the first time in the history that I have been looking at this data, okay, I would certainly say and contextualize Black women as in the persuadable category. That means if you are a Republican running for president or if you're a Democrat running for president, you need to listen to the concerns of Black women. You need to make sure that as you are making your policy appeal, you are appealing to the needs of Black women, and that you understand that this is a vote to be earned and not to be assumed to have. Okay. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my dear sister here, Melanie Campbell.
Thank you. Thank you, Avis, for that. And also thank you again, Terrence. We're going to see if we have any questions
Hey, Mel. Hey, Mel.
in the chat.
Hey,
If you
Mel.
have a question
Melanie, can
for
you hear me?
Terrence and
Hey, Mel, can you
Avis,
hear me? Can
please
you hear me?
let us know now.
Can you hear me? You
Oh,
have a
they
heavy,
can't
you
hear
have,
me.
you have a heavy echo, Mel.
Okay, so I need to help me with my volume.
Yeah,
Just make sure
you
you're
have a,
unmuted. Are you unmuted?
I'm unmuted, but
You muted Avis.
no, I'm saying mine.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Thank you, thank you, Tam. Technology is wonderful. So, in short, we don't have a little echo. If there are any questions, please put your questions in the chat.
No other thoughts, Terrence or Avis? Closing thoughts?
I do see a question here from Poet that I wonder if she can clarify. It says, what is the plan so folks know more than the presidential candidates? Is this,
So, what is the plan? Okay.
can you all say it? Can you
Answer-
repeat the question?
Yeah, I can answer that. The plan is to do what we do. The plan is to get out here, like we've been doing all year. We have a Unity Power to Ballot campaign that we started October last year, right? So for the National Coalition of Black Women's Roundtable, and many of our organizations are working together. Terrence, you're part of that crew too. Is really to make sure we know that it is going to be about turnout. It is going to be about who gets their base plus to the polls in 2024. What concerns me is that the Georgia numbers weren't, the turnout rate was so very, very low. But that's why I said in my brief conversation earlier was we have to make sure, please, whatever folks do out there who are watching, I want to thank Roland Martin Unfiltered for streaming this live on his platform this morning, and thank all of the media that did plug in to listen. You should also have those who are listening, they may still be on, you should have a link to the data. It is also, you can find the data on unitycampaign.org, Unity of nominees, but you still have Congress people running. The House is up. The Senate is up. whoever becomes the president of the United States next, whether that be the incumbent or the former, that we have this opportunity to make sure that there's a balance in government. The House is up, the Senate is up, and as we well know, we're losing rights and freedoms in states. State houses are up this year. In many cases, the governor is up. The state legislature is doing more damage, quite frankly, in many of these states than you have in Congress. Because right now we have a Congress, at least one side of the aisle, and that's just fact, not partisan, is not functioning, right? And so please make sure that you pay attention to all the races. We know the justices, and you have judges that are elected in your state. Take the time to find out who is handling the judicial system in your state. So there's a lot there at stake, and we're going to do all we can at the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and the Black Women's Roundtable. Also, focus on Black youth vote, because I was looking at those numbers about, not about who, because we're nonpartisan, but about what they plan to do or not plan to do. And you know, Terrence, I've heard you lay this out. The biggest voting block are not the boomers, is those below the boomers.
That's
and
right.
so folks, if they're not all the candidates, you better pay attention to what young people are going to do and what their issues are concerned about, to make sure that we build an electorate that can sustain a democracy. Anything else on either chat?
Do you mind if I Mel? Can I?
No, go ahead.
I just want to agree with everything you said and what Dr. DeWeaver said, specifically about Black women having choices here. Look, historically, over 90% of Black women, as high as 96% of Black women have supported Democrats. That what we are seeing in this data is that they are recognizing their agency. They are overwhelmingly motivated and engaged, more so than we've seen from any other group. And for the first time since I've been measuring these numbers, they are exploring their options. This is not a two-person race. They will have options on this ballot. They can choose between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. They can choose between third-party candidates, and they can choose not to vote. And what we are seeing across demographics and voting blocks within Black women is that they're exploring all of those options. And so we do have work to do to continue to engage, but we are seeing that agency, and I'm sure it's going to be expressed on Election Day.
Indeed. I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you all so very much. I'm still muted. Oh, thank you again, Terrence. Hit strategies and your dynamic team. We have more conversations that we will be having on this, more to share later. And thank you, Dr. Avis Jones-Weaver, for being with us today. Thank you, Essence, for partnering with us again and again. Thank you, Roland Martin, Unfiltered, as our media partner as well, for the opportunity to share this information. And information is power. So there's a lot of work to do. Candidates, we're not here to help you. We're just trying to get you the information. Do with it what you may. Thank you.